Good evening, everybody. Hope you're all doing well. It's been a while since I've gone live. Oh, there's someone there. Hello, whoever's there. Whoever is there, let me know who you are, that you can hear me so I can chat along with you. Oh, it's Raquel. Hello, darling. Hey, Beth. How are you doing? Hope you guys are doing well. Raquel, I was thinking of you actually the other day. I found at the service station Reese's Buttercups, and I bought 4 packets of them. There was the packet of 2, and they were extortionate price. And I literally bought 4 packets and ate them in the car on the way home. I felt so sick afterwards. Oh dear. And I was thinking about you and your Reese's obsession as well, like me. Hope you guys are doing well. Beth, I hope Joe is feeling better and on the mend. Guys, I'm really excited to share some do's and don'ts with you tonight about buying property in Italy. It's something that I see quite regularly. 1 pound of Reese's egg. Oh my God. Wow. Yes, please. Won't say no to that. Some do's and don'ts when buying property in Italy, and it's common things that I come across so often. And hey, Crystal, common things that I come across so often that it's so easy to get caught up in the fun and excitement of searching for a property. Hey, Terry, searching for a property, making inquiries about a property, but you always need to keep your wits about you because, and I can speak from personal experience, and I do lose my wits quite often when I see a beautiful house, and we're actually going through the search process for buying something for ourselves, a beach house, and going through all the feelings as most do. And it doesn't get any easier just because I work in the industry. It actually gets harder. I feel like I'm my worst client, my most picky client. Hey, Carol. Right, so firstly, we're going to go through the do's, what to do when you're looking to buy property in Italy. So, just remembered one thing that's not on the list. If I look that way, it's because I've written a page of notes down. If you're a property stalker like me, and hey, Jackie, and what I mean by property stalker, I mean like you literally go through the portals regularly, you know every property that's in the area that the area that you're looking at, and you will see that some properties are not listed exclusively. What does that mean? It means that various agents have the same property. So you're going to have to be really, hey John, really stalkerish in the sense that keep an eye out on the properties, because a lot of the time these properties are priced at different price points. So the worst thing you'd want to find is that you find a property that you really love, make an offer, it gets accepted, and then you see the same property for sale with another agent that's like 20k less. You're like, oh crap. So really you want to be checking across all the portals that your property is not listed with other agents, okay? And I've come across a property that I liked, and I was making inquiries about it, and then I saw it listed somewhere else for like something like 20 something K less. So obviously I'm going to call up the property that's listing it at 20k less, and then try and offer them, try and negotiate the price down as well. 1 second. People are asking me how to join the training. Look, I'm going to keep going. Right, that's the first thing. Always try to negotiate as well. So it's quite difficult sometimes to know what you can negotiate by, because where I come from in Australia, back in the day when I was living in Australia and I worked in real estate there as well, property prices used to be listed from a range. So for example, from 250 to 280, so you know that you have to offer something between 250 and 280, or you could be really cheeky and try to go under 250, but at least you've got that gauge, right? Here, there's no gauge. And I always, the first thing I do when I call up about a property for my clients as well, I always ask, what's the wiggle room? Like, how much can we negotiate it down by? And some agents obviously want you to see the property first before trying to give away that information. Some, if they're, you know, happy to share it, you know, they'll tell you what their client, the seller, is happy to accept, because otherwise you just go back and forth, and it can waste a lot of time. Do agents do off-list properties? What does that mean? Hey Lou, hey Diane. So another thing you'll see quite a lot as well is POA, price and application, or trattativa riservata. Don't be scared by that. It doesn't necessarily mean that the property is extortionately expensive. It could just mean that, you know, they might not want their neighbours to know what the property is being sold for, or maybe the agency entrate, the tax office, to know what the property is being sold for. So there could be a various bunch of reasons why the price is not listed. But, you know, it can't hurt to ask. I've been quite surprised when I've called up about properties that have been POA or trattativa riservata, and they haven't, you know, blown my mind, you know, price-wise. I think, oh, okay, fair enough. There's obviously a reason why the owner does not want the property to be shown and displayed publicly. Right. So, anyone that's been in my circle for a while, you will know that I really do harp on a lot about getting independent advice. It is absolutely crucial. Because at the end of the day, the agent doesn't work on behalf of the buyer or the seller. The agent works for the sale, you know, so they get paid by both the buyer and the seller. So their interest is to sell the property. So for example, yesterday we were in, yesterday we were in Porto Cesario, which is a seaside town in Lower Salento in Puglia. And it's gorgeous. And the property we looked at had a big garden, and we want a garden so we can put in a pool close to the beach. But there was like, you could see the back wall from the kitchen, there was like, it looked damp. There was humidity that you can see. And so we were asking about the problem with the damp. Oh no, you can get that fixed and it's no problem. And he's sending me videos of people drilling holes into walls and filling up the holes with resin, and, you know, that's solving all the problem. And bear in mind, this is the agent sending me all this information, telling me that it's all good. And I'm like, yeah, well, I don't really think I'm going to take his word for it. So I spoke to my technicals, my geometra, and he said that's a load of bullshit. It doesn't fix the problem. And typically houses that are near the beach do have damp problems, and it's very hard to fix unless you're buying a house that's brand new, that has been built in a certain way that kind of stops the water from rising, because it's usually the water that's underneath the house. Anyway, it's something that you can cohabitate with, you can get used to it, you can do things to fix it, but it's always going to be there. So it's whether or not you want to deal with that. Then when I called him back today to tell him that I wanted to do a viewing with the technical, that's when the conversation changed slightly. He told me that the entire house is abusive, casa abusiva, so it's not legal, and the owner is desperately trying to get the property condonato, which means get it accepted as a legal property through the comune, which is highly unlikely. So basically he was trying to sell me a house that was full of damp and not even a legally habitable property, right? And, you know, I work in the industry, I ask the questions, so it's like it gets very, very interesting. So this is why, I guess, having independent advice, and this is going to go on to my next topic of legal and structural due diligence, is absolutely crucial, okay? So why is that? Let's start with the legal due diligence. So legal due diligence is not just for checking, you know, the searches and everything like that. Casey, yes, they are. They can be quite common, and there are things you can do to, like interventions that you can do to help that. But a lot of the new houses are built in a way that don't have those issues, okay? So something to be wary of, and when you're looking for properties, that's why, you know, I went to see a property. I'm just going to go off topic just slightly just to answer Casey's question. I saw a property with a client in Polignano a Mare last month, and we're going back to see it this weekend. Basically, the property, how it was built, she tried to explain it like a cushion underneath the foundations that's kind of making sure that the water doesn't rise up, okay? So the damp won't go into the house, and that has how the house was built specifically to avoid any sort of damp problem in the future. But if you're dealing with, you know, properties, you know, that are built, that are old, and you know, need to restore them, it's something you need to be wary of, and so you need to have a geometer, which is a surveyor, check everything. Anyway, so going back to the legal due diligence. Legal due diligence is absolutely crucial. Why? Because you want to find out before making any sort of payment to the seller or payment to the agent, however you're going to pay deposit, not the agent, sorry, payment to the seller, how you're going to, or to the notary, whoever you're going to pay the deposit. If there's any problem with any debts against the property, any mortgages, all the sellers, you know, able to sell the property, is there, you know, any zoning issues, all sorts of things. So you want to really make sure that that is dealt with before you're signing, and, you know, you're agreeing to buying a property, putting a deposit down, all these sorts of things. What can happen is properties, you know, you can have a contract, a contract of sale be written up subject to various clauses, that the property is obviously free from any debts and mortgages, that the property is legally habitable and compliant, all these sorts of things. That's why having a good property lawyer is crucial, because they do all those checks in the very, very beginning, and they kind of run alongside in tandem with the geometer, who's also doing their checks on the structure. So a geometer is absolutely crucial in the sense that he's going to stop, well, he or she, whatever, they're going to check the house to make sure there's no illegal components. So I went to see another house further down in Puglia on the south in Salento the other day. Total catfish of a house. Like, I'm a sucker for a white house and blue shutters. Honestly, you give me a white box, like a box villa with blue shutters, and I'm like in like Flynn. I absolutely love them. And I saw this house that's, you know, it was a stone's throw from the beach, and I went down there. Bear in mind, I drove 2 hours and 20 minutes to get to this house, 2 hours and 20 minutes back. So that was like 4 hours and 40 minutes of driving just in one morning, and it was quite intense. Drove 2 hours and 20 minutes to get to this house to find out there is a dependance, so I can addition the back of the house that's completely illegal. And, you know, we're not paying in cash for this property. We're going to have a mortgage. And if you want to have a mortgage, the property has to be legally compliant. Why is that? Because the bank will send out a technician to check the property. They check the deed. They make sure everything's compliant. They make sure everything's tickety-boo, because they're not going to start lending you money if the property is abusive and not legal, okay? So I was, as you can imagine, quite pleased to know that after driving 2.5 hours to see this bloody house, that it was completely illegal, and I you know, wouldn't have been possible even to get a mortgage. And I explained this to the agent and said, look, you know, we're not buying in cash, we're buying with a mortgage. And he said, oh, look, you know, what you can do is you just get someone to cover it up. Like, he's basically telling me we need to get someone, we would pay, obviously, someone to cover this, like, dependance, like cover up the walls, the doors, like as if like it was just a box, and it is as if it was just belonged to the house behind this house. And I'm thinking, yes, I know that I'm blonde and I know that I'm foreign, but I'm not fucking stupid. You can't just get you can't just paint. Hey Alice, you can't just paint or cover up as if like this is, this whole massive 60 square meter, monolocale dependance doesn't exist. Like it's just not, it's not going to happen. So these things you really need to, and a geometer will check all these things, because and then on the flip side, if you decided to buy that house, you're not getting a mortgage, so you're paying cash, you buy that house and you're then legally liable for all the problems that are coming with that house, all the illegal problems. For example, there could have been, I called up about a property today in Fasano, absolutely gorgeous, right? And it was only something like 280,000 euros, and it was a 3-bedroom, beautiful, stunning villa with an infinity pool in Selva di Fasano, which is like one of the most prestigious parts of Fasano, on the hill with the sea view. I called the agent. I said, tell me right now what's wrong with this property. Why is it so cheap? And he said, well, okay, the villa is fine, but the pool shouldn't technically be there. Okay. I said, well, we're going to, we're getting a mortgage, so obviously we're going to need that everything is in place legally. Otherwise, again, the bank's going to turn up, do the inspection, see that there's a pool sitting there that shouldn't be there, that's not on the plans, that's illegal, and they'll never give you the money. But again, and this has happened, obviously not through clients of mine, but I had heard, obviously there's so many horror stories about people buying illegal properties, but an English couple had bought a property in Puglia because they really wanted a house with a pool, right? But the pool was put in illegally. So what had happened is that they didn't get any checks done prior to the purchase. They bought the property, pool was there, and then it turned out they had to pull the pool out at their own expense because the pool was in illegally, but they also had to pay the fine to the comune for that pool being put in, which they didn't put in illegally, and also the costs of pulling the pool out to start off with. So that's like a lot of money, and your house is ruined, basically. So all of these things you really, really, really need to keep into your mind when you're looking to buy property in Italy. And you want to make sure that you're getting independent advice, because if you're getting the agent to recommend someone to you, let's not forget the agent's interest is the sale, right? So they're not interested in, hey Marie, I'm not tarring all agents with the same brush, because there are some that are absolutely fantastic, and I have the fantastic ones very, very close to me, because I want to keep myself surrounded by agents that are going to treat my clients in the best way possible. Because unfortunately, there are a lot of agents out there that are very, very unscrupulous, and they don't really have your best interests at heart, okay? Right, let's have some water, bear with me. So, hey Shelley, one thing as well that's really, really important is to understand when you're looking at a property or you're doing a virtual tour, whatever, if you like the layout, the contents inside the property, what I mean by contents, the kitchen, it could be furnished, all that sort of stuff, what do you call them, curtains, all these sorts of things. If you want that to remain in the property, you need to be super specific when you're making your offer. Is this property being sold furnished? If so, I want everything, or you make a list, all the things you do want, and you're clear of the things that you don't want, because the last thing you want to have happen, and this happens time and time and time again, and this is actually one of the reasons why I wanted to do this do's and don'ts training, because I see this happen so often, is that people buy properties because they fall in love with the kitchen, yeah? And then when they get the keys, the kitchen's not there because the owner's taken the kitchen out. And 9 times out of 10, what happens to these kitchens is they just get sold. We have something called Subuto Puntuit, which is like your version of Craigslist, okay, or Gumtree or whatever. And a lot of the times you see kitchens that are for sale that have been pulled out of properties because, you know, they're not going to use them for their own property, or they try to put them back in another property or whatever. But, you know, you could have had that kitchen if you were clear in the very, very beginning as to what you want to have left in the properties. Because don't ever assume, okay? You cannot ever assume when buying property in Italy, and you especially cannot ever assume and think that things are going to happen in the way they do in your own country. That is the quickest way to massive, massive disappointment. And that doesn't go just with buying property in Italy. Hey, Lenore, that goes with everything that comes with living in Italy. You've got to literally forget about how everything is done in your own country and be really open to understanding that things are done in a very, very different way here, a lot of the time without logic. But that's just how it is, right? So be super specific about what you want to have left in the property. And on the flip side, if the house is filled, hey Dana, if the house is filled with crap, and let's face it, most of these houses are filled with absolute crap. And when we see the portals, these pictures, and it's just ciao bella, just every single thing from that person's ever owned in their life is in this house. You don't want to be inheriting all of that junk. Because sometimes, you know, you might be buying a house where it's been passed down to the kids because the parents have died, or an aunt has died, or a relative have passed away, or whatever, and you've got all of their stuff inside. So if you're not specific, again, when you're making your offer that you want all this stuff taken out, you inherit all of that, and then you're having to pay to get that removed, right? So you've just got to be in the offer stage. You could put an annex together for your lawyer who's creating your offer. This is what I want left in, and everything else leaves. Like everything else goes. So just be really, really, really clear. So that's my main kind of do's that I wanted to share with you. With the don'ts. Don't listen to the agent. And don't think that the agent has your best interests at heart all the time. I did, allure to that before. Because a lot of the time they don't, because they want to sell you a property, okay? So you've got to be really, really, I guess, take what they say with a pinch of salt, okay? And a lot of the time they will tell you, yeah, you can do this, you can do this. Oh, you know, you can put in a pool. No problem, you can put in a pool. Not a problem at all, blah, 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 blah. And as it turns out, you probably can't, or you can't restore it in a way that you want to do it. You can't extend it, you can't do this, you can't do that. So you just want to make sure that everything that you want to do, you have someone independent checking the property on your behalf that can check all these things from a technical point of view, okay? Something that I really want to reiterate, and I do say this pretty much on every training that I do, is don't think that cheap represents value. So, because it's not always the case, right? So for those of you who are subscribers to La Dolce Vita Lifestyle magazine, you would have seen that I just inserted a segment called the 50K Club. And the 50K Club is 10 properties that are under 50K. However, I really go through the portals with a fine-tooth comb to make sure that these properties are not located in areas that are undesirable, because there's nothing worse than if you were to buy somewhere thinking that it is like you're going to be your own slice of La Dolce Vita, and actually it's, you know, hell on earth, and the worst people of the country go there on holiday. And you're surrounded by, you know, unsavory characters that you would never want to be surrounded by. I can guarantee you. So you want to really make sure that just because something is cheap, it might have a sea view, it doesn't mean that it's value for money. So looking at areas, Carol, that's a really good question. It's also a question of how long's a piece of string, because full rehab, what is a full rehab to you? What could be a full rehab to you might be something different to someone else, right? And it depends on where you are buying, what the restrictions are, how long the planning permission will take to get done by the Comune, what are you going to do to the property, all of these sorts of things. And, do you have someone local that you can, that knows people that can push papers through someone's desk and get something pushed through quicker? There's nothing's black and white, okay? It's all grey matter. So costs and time, it's something, it depends where you're going to buy, what you're going to buy, what do you want to do. That's something that I couldn't really tell you. But I'm telling you now, it takes a while, okay? I always say, unless you're really thick-skinned and you're not in a rush and you like a lot of drama, you like, being dragged around up and down like you're on a roller coaster or feeling like you're a hamster on a wheel, buy a rundown wreck and restore it, because it will literally put you through the ringer emotionally, mentally, financially. And at the end of the day, once it's all done, yes, you could have a most beautiful home that you've kind of designed yourself, but there is a cost to pay for that, not just financially, but the actual stress involved that this happens and what this causes. It's just not worth it. Your mental health is worth so much more than trying to restore something and dealing with there's so many layers of bureaucracy already when buying property in Italy, and restoring something adds to those layers. By all means, if you want to buy something that needs some TLC, or you put your own stamp on it, your personal stamp on it, I'm a big fan of that. I've got a really good eye for seeing absolute diamonds in the rough, and it's like a real hobby of mine to get these diamonds in the rough. But unfortunately now, having 2 kids, I can't be living in a diamond in the rough kind of property when I need to have something that's habitable. So that kind of fun for me has kind of been taken away from me. However, full blown restorations, I would steer well clear of it, unless you're in for you want to have a wild ride there. Cheap, yeah, and then with the cheap, and value, I'm going to, the €1 homes obviously form a massive part of that. I'm not even going to go into that, because that could be a whole nother 2-hour webinar. Me talking about my hatred for the €1 homes. What about a roof on a semi-detached? I would never buy a semi-detached property unless, this is the thing, right? Terry, this is the thing, and I meant to get back to your message. Sorry, mate. Okay. When you're looking at a semi-detached property or a villetta a schiera, which means it's like joined onto another property, right? You've got someone pretty much on you, and you don't know what this person's going to be like as a neighbour. So exactly, if your roof, your shared roof, or you want to do repairs to the roof, do you know whether your neighbour's going to be up for, contributing as well? Hey, Bob, I don't know. You might have to end up doing it at your own cost. You just don't know. You don't know who you're going to come across. And that's the thing. It's always a gamble, isn't it? So for us, one of our many key drivers for looking for this summer home right now is that we want to be a singular property, with a garden, either a big garden or a bit of land, so we don't have neighbours encroaching in on us. Because A, it's the quickest way to arguments if you don't get along. B, if there's repairs that need doing, you just don't know how that's going to pan out. Talk about €1 homes, just run away from them. Don't think that everything's done quickly. So a common question I get, my sinuses are playing up again. a common question that I get is that if I'm a cash buyer, does that mean I can close in 30 days, 60 days? No, it doesn't. Because you've got to understand that it's not just about your timeline. It's also about the timeline of the seller. So if the seller is still living in the property, they might need time to find something else. Or, you know, they might need time for whatever reason that they can't sell. So, or another thing that that I came across the other day, and I do come across this quite regularly. I found this beautiful property near the beach. It was already restored, so that was a major plus. Already like being sold furnished, all ticked all the boxes, and I'm like, wow, this looks incredible. Chatting away with the owner, and he said, oh, well, you know, we can't sell the property physically until April 2023. Which probably he goes, we need to sort out some documents. Which made me think there's obviously something that's either illegal or maybe that they need to wait a certain amount of time before selling the property because of capital gains tax. So your timeline, being a cash buyer, or, you know, even if you've got a mortgage or finance lined up and you know you could close within 2 months, it might not align with the timeline of the seller. And so that's really, really important. Yes, being a cash buyer has a massive advantage, especially when you're going to be negotiating, because, you know, sometimes you may be up against another buyer that wants to offer more, but because you've got cash and you can close quicker, if the owner wants to close quickly, you know, they're obviously going to take a lower offer, being able to close quicker. So that's something about the, you know, on the not thinking that everything gets done quickly. Another thing that drives people absolutely batty, and it drives me batty as well, but, you know, I'm kind of used to it, is that agents don't pick up the phone like they do where we come from. You've got to call them and call them and call them and call them and stalk them and literally threaten to kidnap their mother and before they answer the phone and tell you information about the property. You can email them, call them, whatever, and they just won't, you know. I actually called about a house the other day, and the guy says to me, he answered the phone pronto, and he had a very thick accent from Napoli, and I picked it up because obviously I lived in Napoli for 15 months, and I was asking about the property, and he says, what do you want? Then he hung the phone up on me. So I thought, oh, clearly he's not interested in collaboration. And, you know, he answered the phone, but he didn't, you know, he wasn't very, very helpful. But some agents, they just don't answer the phone at all. And it's mind-blowing. It's like, do you want to make a sale or not? It's absolutely mind-blowing. So I hope that's kind of giving you a bit of an insight. I will try to do a training once a month. I am actually working on something to kind of bundle up all the trainings that I've been doing, just to make it very, very easy and accessible for everybody. So I'll share more a bit about that once I've got it up and running. Yeah, he just hung up on me. He said, I'm in the bank. Oof. He hung the phone up on me. Didn't say, can you call me back, or let me call you back, or anything like that. And, you know, after the way he spoke to me, I was like, I actually don't really want to be doing anything with that person anyway. Didn't like the house badly enough. So if you are, you know, wanting to get that advice on, you know, where to buy, you know, what are the good properties to buy, just, you know, sign up to the magazine, or if you're on the fence, there is a free version that I do 8 properties a week. Basically, I pick my top 8 and I put them in every week. So if you want to have that as a starter, just to see if you like it, or if you want to register and become either one of a basic plan subscriber or a VIP subscriber, you get all the discounts as the VIP. So I'm going to put the link in here so you can check it out. But honestly, what I'm seeing with the market right now is that things are moving really, really, really quickly, and Puglia is just getting really, really crazy expensive, and properties are selling like that. So if you are really, oh, thank you, Terry. If you're thinking about, you know, making that move and getting started and buying a property, you need to get your skates on, because otherwise you might get priced out of the market. And, you know, I've been talking so much about Lower Salento and the beaches of Lower Salento and how they're just like, you know, a little piece of paradise. And our original plan was to get something done in Lower Salento, and actually blown my mind about how expensive properties are. Not in the historical centres. In the historical centres, they're still very, very, very reasonable, because the towns in the off season are fairly dead. But if you want to, obviously, as I always say, like, think about it as a long game, buy something. And there are some beautiful properties in historical centres for less than, you know, 150,000 euros, and they're all restored, and some of them got sea views, and it's just gorgeous. But if you want like a house with like, you know, a villa or something like that, they've got something called a pajara. It's called a pajara. So it's like their version of a trullo. It's like a Saracen trullo. And some of these properties, as Saracen trullos with land and a sea view, they're going for hundreds of thousands of euros, but they need to be restored, right? And I'm like, oh my God. So I saw one property, and this was the one property that I saw that I absolutely fell in love with. But, you know, I'm you know, 42 with 2 kids. I haven't got that young spirit of, you know, living in a building site like I used to when I used to restore properties. I've got to think about 2 children and the safety aspect of it all. But this property was on the market for 220,000 euros. And, you know, I think he would have taken about 180. And it had this spectacular sea view, and it was 2 lamias joined together. And it had bundles and bundles of potential, and it's got a hectare of land as well. And then I saw a property, a very pretty much the same type of property, the 2 lamias together with the sea view, restored, 600,000, had a pool. And I'm like, oh my God. So at, you know, the not raw state, it was just like a state that needed to be restored. It was still livable as such. 220,000, you could re-get it for 180. And then if you restored it, put in a pool, and you sorted out the land and made it a bit more presentable, 600K. I mean, that's a massive, massive, massive jump. So it's very interesting what's happening with the market. It's moving very, very quickly. So guys, have a fantastic rest of the day. It's 10:10 here. I'm going to carry on with some property searching. And oh, thank you, Raquel, for all the love. And yeah, good to reconnect with everybody. It's been a while. You know, I needed a bit of a time out after, you know, the competition and launching the magazine, everything like that. But I'm going to aim to do hopefully a training once a month. I'm just about to come into my very busy period where I have a lot of clients coming, so I will aim to, you know, share some footage when I'm out on site as well. I'm going to be doing some promo stuff with a company that do turnkey, the most stunning turnkey properties in Puglia. Oh my God, they're absolutely fantastic. So I thought I would love to, when it gets a bit warmer, the weather, is to actually go out on site and film some footage of what they call a trullado, which is the person restoring the trulli houses. It's actually really fascinating to watch, and they do everything by hand, and it's so beautiful, and it's just these centuries old traditions passed down, and they're still being done. And I thought it'd be really cool to show you some, you know, oh, thanks, Carol, thank you for tuning in, to show you some, you know, footage of how this actually happens, how these beautiful trulli houses are actually restored. So yeah, awesome. Thanks, Maureen. I'm glad you managed to jump in. Turnkey video sounds incredible. Oh, Nicole, honestly, what they do to these properties, it's just fascinating. So, yeah, just to kind of take you guys out as much on possible on tour with me whilst I'm out on the road, just to see, you know, you can see what it's like and see what's around, and yeah, awesome stuff. Have a fantastic rest of the day, and looking forward to connecting with you all again in the next video. Ciao.